Good afternoon, class. This is going to be part 2 of our tissue and integumentary online lecture. Okay, so we're going to pick up where we left off talking about connective tissue. So the last lecture we got through talking about epithelium. Okay, so now we're going to talk about connective tissue, and essentially epithelium is going to be superficial to the connective tissue. The connective tissue is going to be deeper to the epithelium, okay? And connective tissue is the most abundant and widely distributed of primary tissues. Major function is binding and support, protecting, insulating, storing reserve fuel, and transporting substances, which is blood. So 4 main classes: connective tissue proper, cartilage, bone, and blood. And I know blood may seem like an odd connective tissue, but if you think about it, really, blood connects the respiratory system to the circulatory system, okay? So it's going to transport the oxygen and nutrients to the to tissues throughout the body, okay? So, and they get the oxygen from the respiratory system, and again, the nutrients come from the digestive system, but it's connecting all those to the nutrients and the oxygen, and also then it's gonna get rid of the waste too. So blood does a lot of transporting, okay? So this table is just a comparison of the classes of connective tissue, okay? So you have your connective tissue proper, and then you have, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to do that. And then you have the subclasses for connective tissue proper. All right, so you have loose connective tissue. So essentially, the name, okay, gives you a description of what it is. So you have loose, and then you have dense, okay? So obviously loose is going to be more spread out than the dense. Dense is going to be more dense, essentially, okay? So under loose, you have areolar, adipose, and reticular, okay, connective tissues. For the dense connective tissue, you have regular, irregular, and elastic, okay? And again, we're going to go over more details about all of these classes, but we'll just go over a brief overview right now. All right, so the cells dealing with connective tissue proper is fibroblasts, fibrocytes, defense cells, and adipose sites. Adipose is just fat, okay? Adipose is just fat. All right, the matrix, gel-like ground substance, all 3 fiber types, collagen, reticular, elastic. All right, so general features: 6 different types, vary in density and types of fibers, functions as binding tissue, resists mechanical stress, particularly tension, and it provides a reservoir for water and salts. And when we talk about the areolar connective tissue, which is the most abundant connective tissue, connective tissue proper in the body, it is responsible for the edema. So like when people feet swell or any other part of their body swell from usually some excess fluid building up, it's the areolar connective tissue that sucks up, that absorbs that excess water or interstitial fluid, essentially, and then by it absorbing the excess fluid, you have your edema, you have your swelling, okay, and provides nutrients, okay. All right, so then you have cartilage, 3 types of cartilage: hyaline cartilage, elastic cartilage, fibro cartilage, okay. And the cells are chondroblasts, found in the growing cartilage and chondrocytes, gel-like ground substance, and then that's fibers, collagen, elastic fibers, and some. And cartilage resists compression because of the large amounts of water held in the matrix, okay? So it functions to cushion and support body structures. All right, so bone tissue subcategories: compact bone and spongy bone. And again, the name gives you a very good picture of what they are. All right, obviously compact bone is going to be compact compared to spongy bone. Think of a sponge with spongy bone. With a sponge, you have a lot of airy spaces. Okay, the cells: osteoblasts and osteocytes. Matrix, gel-like ground substance calcified with inorganic salts. All right, fibers or collagen. And bone is hard tissue that resists both compression and tension, functions and support. And then blood. All right, so you have red blood cells, which are the erythrocytes. All right, and then you have leukocytes, which are the white blood cells. And you have platelets. Okay, matrix is the plasma, no fibers, and it's a fluid tissue, functions to carry oxygen, carbon dioxide, nutrients, waste, and other substances. Okay, so now let's go into those connective tissues, all of them in more detail. Okay, all right, so all connective tissue have three main elements. Okay, they all have three main elements: a ground substance, fibers, and cells. Okay, the first two elements, the ground substance and fibers, make up the extracellular matrix. Okay, the extracellular matrix, the ground substance and fibers make up the extracellular matrix. Composition and arrangement of these three elements vary considerably in different types of connective tissue. So three types of fibers provide support. Okay, collagen is the strongest and most abundant type. So remember that all of the connective tissue has collagen as fibers, except for blood, because blood doesn't have any fibers. But the other three, the connective tissue proper, bone, and cartilage, all have collagen, okay, as one of their fibers. All right, and then elastic fibers. All right. Oh, and also when you're looking at the slides of the different tissues, collagen tends to stain pink. Okay, and then you have elastic fibers. Okay, which are networks of long, thin elastin fibers that allow for stretch and recoil. They tend to stain dark purple. Sometimes they almost look kind of black depending on how bright the background is, but they tend to stain more dark purple, and you see what I'm talking about when we look at some images. Okay, you find elastic fibers mainly in the connective tissue proper. Okay, some cartilage does have elastic fibers. Okay, and again, remember, you're not going to find it in blood. Blood doesn't have any fibers. And you're not going to find it in bone. You're not going to find elastic fibers in bone either. Okay, so mostly in connective tissue proper, and a few of the cartilages you'll find elastic fibers. Okay, but not in bone or blood. All right, and then reticular fibers, which are short, fine, highly branched collagenous fibers. They have a different chemistry and form from collagen fibers. The branching forms networks that offers more give. Okay, and you only find reticular fibers in the connective tissue proper. All right, so remember, the connective tissue proper has all three of the tissue fibers. Connective tissue proper has collagen, elastic fibers, and reticular fibers. Okay. This is a diagram of areolar connective tissue. Okay, and areolar gets its name from, it has an airy appearance. And again, this slide looks more purple than what it normally looks. Normally the slide looks kind of more pinkish, but then it has a more of an airy, um, spacey kind of airy appearance. And normally, especially the slides, if you look in lab, these collagen fibers are going to look more pink than this. These looks kind of purple almost, but the collagen fibers normally look more pink, and then the elastic fibers look more dark purple normally. And hopefully then you have your reticular fibers, which are even thinner. Hopefully there's a better slides later on that we'll see. But this is just a diagram. All right. So with the connective tissue, remember you have your extracellular matrix. Okay. So again, extracellular means outside the cell matrix. And remember that the extracellular matrix is composed of two things. All right, the ground substance, all right, which is just the the ground substance is the gel-like material that's found in between the cells. Okay, so it's just a gel-like material found in between the cells. And then you have fibers. Okay, you have collagen fibers, elastic fibers, and reticular fibers. And remember, areolar connective tissue is a type of loose connective tissue. It's connective tissue proper. Remember, in the connective tissue proper, you have all three types of fibers: collagen fibers, elastic, and reticular fibers. All right, and areolar is an example of the loose, all right, connective tissue proper. All right. So the extracellular matrix, okay, is going to provide structural and biochemical support to the surrounding cells. Okay. And here you have a macrophage. A macrophage is a white blood cell, okay? A fibroblast. So again, the fibroblasts are going to produce, okay, the extracellular matrix, okay? They're going to make the collagen and elastin, okay? They also produce adhesive proteins, and they also make the ground substance, okay? That gel-like fluid in between the cells. All right, so fibroblasts produce all of that. All right, again, the collagen and elastin fibers, and they also produce the ground substance. Okay, so the fibroblast is mainly responsible for the extracellular matrix. Okay, that's what fibroblasts are going to make. All right, and then you have your lymphocyte, which is another type of white blood cell. You have different types of white blood cell. Lymphocytes, another different type of white blood cell. A fat cell, a mast cell. Okay, mast cells are involved. The mast cells also involved in the immune system, but the mast cells contain histamine. Okay, so they're involved in, what gives you your allergies. Okay, and then a neutrophil, another white blood cell, all right, involved in the immune system. All right. And then here's the capillary. So remember, again, the epithelium does not contain blood vessels. So the nutrients for the epithelium are going to come for the connective tissue. Okay, it's going to move from the connective tissue up. All right. So remember, the epithelium has no blood vessels, but epithelium does have nerves. Okay, nerve innervation. All right, so again, four main classes of connective tissue. Connective tissue proper, that image we just looked at was an example of the loose connective tissue proper, areolar, all right, connective tissue. And remember, areolar connective tissue is responsible for the edema, okay, soaking up the excessive fluid, interstitial fluid in between our tissues. And that causes edema, causes swelling, okay, the areolar, which we got through looking at. Then you have cartilage, bone, and blood. And remember, we're going to talk about each one in more detail. So, connective tissue proper consists of all connective tissue except bone, cartilage, and blood. Okay? Alright, so all connective tissue besides bone, cartilage, and blood, that should be easy to remember, right? Alright, so you have two subcategories. You have loose connective tissue proper, the areolar we just got through looking at. adipose, which is fat connective tissue, and then reticular. And then you have dense connective tissue proper. You have dense, regular, dense, irregular, and elastic. All right, so remember also in connective tissue, you have all three types. You have all three of the fiber types. All right, you have collagen, elastin, and also reticular fibers. So for the loose connective tissue, proper areolar connective tissue, so this is a good test question. They like to know what's the most widely distributed connective tissue. It's areolar connective tissue. It's the most widely distributed. That's a good test question. All right. It supports and binds other tissues. Universal packing material between other tissues. Contains fibroblasts that secrete loose arrangement of mostly collagen fibers. I remember your fibroblasts are going to produce the extracellular matrix. Okay. Remember that consists of ground substance. Okay, which is a gel-like fluid in between the cells, and the fibers, okay, in which are collagen, elastic, and reticular. But understand that different connective tissue has different fibers, okay? They don't all have the same fibers, and they don't all have the same distribution of all the fibers. Some have a majority of one fiber, some have maybe two, but one is still heavier than the other. Okay, so they have a lot of times the fibers aren't evenly distributed. Okay, so, usually one predominates, or if they have several, then they still have more or less of one or two of the other ones. Okay. And in this case, they secrete the loose arrangement of mostly collagen fibers, and then you have loose fibers allow for increased ground substance. Okay, ground substance is that gel-like fluid, gel-like substance in between cells, which can act as a water reservoir by holding more interstitial fluid. Interstitial fluid is just the fluid that escapes from capillaries, and then it's in between the tissues. Okay, so when you have your capillaries, some of the fluid gets pushed out of the capillaries and gets in between the tissues. That's the interstitial fluid. Okay, and you have macrophages, okay, which are white blood cells, and fat cells are contained in spaces. All right, so here's a slide like I was talking about. That looks more like a slide that you would see in your lab practical. Okay, so you can see, remember I said that the pink collagen fibers tend to stain pink, okay, and then the elastic fibers are dark purple, okay, almost kind of look black, but if you look closely, it's really kind of dark purple. Okay, those are the elastic fibers. All right, so again, collagen fibers are pink, elastic fibers look almost dark purple. And then you have your fibroblast nuclei, right? Remember, your fibroblasts make the extracellular matrix. Then you have your ground substance, which is in between the gel-like substance in between the cells, okay? And this is an example of areolar connective tissue. Remember, areolar connective tissue has an airy appearance, okay? So if you look at this does look kind of a airy appearance, okay? So description, gel-like matrix with all three fiber types, okay? So you have collagen, elastic, and reticular. So the reticular will be the even fine, thin fibers, okay? Even fine, thin fibers. They don't have it labeled in this diagram, okay? But remember, connective tissue proper has all three fiber types, okay? And then areolar connective tissue is a loose connective tissue proper, okay? So all three cell types, fibroblasts, macrophages, mast cells. Remember, mast cells involved in your allergies have histamine, and some white blood cells. All right, so functions, wraps and cushions, organs, is macrophages, phagocytize, engulfs bacteria, okay? Plays an important role in inflammation, holds and conveys tissue fluid. So again, the tissue that's the connective tissue that's going to be responsible for edema, soaking up the excessive interstitial fluid in between your tissues that causes the swelling edema, is going to be mainly the areolar connective tissue. Okay, remember that. Widely distributed under epithelia of a body, forms lamina propria of mucous membranes, packages of organs, surrounds capillaries. Okay, and remember the interstitial fluid forms from the fluid being pushed out of the capillaries. When blood goes through the capillaries, some of the fluid gets pushed out of the capillaries, okay, and into the area that's kind of in between the tissue. That's called interstitial fluid. And if you have an excess of that, okay, this areolar connective tissue is going to absorb it, and that's where you get your edema, swelling from. All right, so another example of loose connective tissue proper is adipose tissue. So that's just fat. And when you see the slide of fat, they're real easy to remember. When you see it, you understand, because there's really a lot of space with just vesicles with just fat droplets in it, and you'll see when you see it. All right, but similar to areolar tissue, but greater nutrient storage. The cells are called adipocytes. Scanty matrix. It has a lot of richly vascularized and functions in shock absorption, insulation, and energy storage. All right, so again, you see these fat droplets. Okay, like I said, fat slides are easy to identify. You see these big fat droplets. Okay, then you have the nucleus of the adipose cells, the fat cells. Alright, so matrix is areolar, but very sparse. Closely packaged adipocytes or fat cells have nucleus pushed to the side by the large fat droplet. The function is to provide a reservoir for food. Fat is a good energy source. Insulates against heat loss, and it supports and protects organs. All right, so you find fat under the skin in the subcutaneous tissue. All right, around kidneys and eyeballs, within the abdomen. All right, and breast. All right, so now let's talk about the reticular connective tissue, and another example of loose connective tissue proper. All right, resembles areolar tissue, but fibers are thinner reticular fibers. All right, so fibroblast cells are called reticular cells. All right, secretes reticular fibers made up of thin collagen. Okay, so remember, reticular fibers are just made up of thin collagen, and then that are more branched. Okay, so reticular fibers form a mesh-like stroma that acts as a support for blood cells and lymph nodes, spleen, and bone marrow. All right, so here's an image of reticular connective tissue. All right, fibers forming the internal skeleton of the spleen. So you see your reticular fibers, okay, that stain pretty darkly. Okay, they stain relatively darkly, your reticular fibers. And then you see your white blood cell right here. All right. So the loose network of reticular fibers in a gel-like ground substance. Reticular cells lie on the network. Function: the fibers form a soft internal skeleton stroma that supports other cell types, including white blood cells, mast cells, and macrophages. You find it in the lymph nodes, okay, bone marrow, and spleen. All right, so connective tissue proper, dense connective tissue. So the name dense, you're gonna expect these connective tissues to be a lot more dense than the loose connective tissue. Okay, so you have three varieties of dense connective tissue. You have dense regular, dense irregular, and elastic. All right, so the dense regular connective tissue, all right, very high tensile strength, can withstand high tension and stretching. Closely packaged bundles of thick collagen fibers run parallel to direction of pull. Okay, fibers appear as white structures, great resistance to pulling. Fibers are slightly wavy, so stretch a little, and the fibroblasts manufacture collagen fiber and ground substance. Okay, and very few cells and ground substance, mostly fibers. It's poorly vascularized, so it doesn't have a good blood supply. Examples are tendons and ligaments. Okay, your example of dense regular connective tissue example are tendons and ligaments. All right, so you see that wavy appearance. You see it's definitely dense. You see the collagen fibers are running parallel to each other. All right, definitely dense. And you see the nuclei of the fibroblasts. Okay, so this is an image of dense regular connective tissue from a tendon. All right, so description, primarily parallel collagen fibers, a few elastic fibers. Major cell type is the fibroblast. Okay, function attaches muscles to bones or to muscles. So just remember that tendons connect muscle to bone, okay, and ligaments connect bone to bone, all right? So function attaches muscle to bones, which are the tendons, attaches bone to bones, which are the ligaments, withstands great tensile stress when pulling forces applied in one direction. Location, tendons, ligaments, and aponeurosis. All right, cartilage. All right, so cartilage, the matrix secreted from chondroblasts during growth. And chondrocytes are adult cells, okay? So the for cartilage, the matrix is secreted from chondroblasts when they're growing, okay? And then when they become adult cells, they're called chondrocytes, okay? They secrete the matrix, okay? Chondroblasts, when they're immature, secretes the matrix, and then chondrocytes, when essentially the mature cells, secrete the matrix. All right, chondrocytes found in cavities called lacunae. So 80% water with packed collagen fibers and sugar proteins. Tough yet flexible material that lacks nerve fibers, avascular. So again, no blood supply. Receives nutrients from membrane surrounding it. The periochondrium gives rise to the chondroblasts and chondrocytes. Alright, and the periochondrium is the membrane surrounding it, okay? Membrane surrounding it. And it gives rise to the chondroblasts and chondrocytes. And cartilage has hyaluronic acid, okay? It has hyaluronic acid. All right, so 3 types of cartilage. hyaline cartilage. All right, so hyaline cartilage is the most abundant. All right, gristle. Remember that word, gristle is the most abundant. Appears as a shiny bluish glass found at tips of long bones, nose, trachea, larynx, and the cartilage of the ribs. All right, also be aware of that the fetal skeleton. All right, so when before the baby is born, the fetal skeleton is made out of hyaline cartilage. Okay, and then after. So again, the fetal skeleton is made up of hyaline cartilage, and then when the baby's born, okay, that hyaline cartilage is going to calcify and form, get hard and form the skeleton. And just side note, that's why if you rub a newborn baby head a lot, okay, you can actually change the shape of its skull because the skull hasn't calcified yet. It's still hyaline cartilage. So if you rub a newborn baby head a lot, okay, you can actually change the shape of the baby's head. Just a side note. All right, and then you have elastic cartilage. All right, similar to hyaline, but with more elastic fibers found in ears and epiglottis. Okay, the epiglottis is what covers the opening, all right, to your windpipe, so that when you are essentially eating or drinking, you don't choke. Okay. All right, and then the fibrocartilage, properties between hyaline and dense regular tissue, strong, so found in areas such as the intervertebral disc and knee. All right, so just again, remember the most abundant hyaline cartilage is, the most abundant type of cartilage is the hyaline cartilage, all right, also referred to as gristle, okay, and it appears as shiny blue glass, all right, and remember the locations that you find the different cartilages, okay. All right, so here is an example, a picture of hyaline cartilage, all right, from the costal cartilage of a rib. All right, so you have the chondrocytes and a lacunae. All right, lacunae is just a cavity, okay. Then you have the matrix, okay. All right, so description, it's amorphous but firm matrix. Collagen fibers form an imperceptible network. Chondroblasts produce the matrix, and when mature, which they're referred to as chondrocytes, lie in lacunae, okay, cavities. Function supports and reinforces, serves as a resilient cushion, resists compressive stress. All right, location for most of the embryonic skeleton, as I referred to before, the embryonic skeleton covers the ends of long bones and joint cavities, forms the costal cartilage of the ribs. All right, cartilages of the nose, trachea, and larynx is hyaline cartilage. So again, you're going to want to know the locations, okay, of the different cartilages. All right, so elastic, this is a picture of elastic cartilage from a human ear, all right. So it forms the flexible skeleton of the ear, elastic cartilage. So similar to hyaline cartilage, but more elastic fibers in the matrix. So you see how, if we go back to the image, that the hyaline cartilage is mostly pink, okay. Remember, I said collagen stains pink, okay. So the hyaline cartilage has a lot of collagen, all right. Whereas you see with the elastic cartilage, you see more of this dark purple, okay. More of this purple are the elastic fibers, okay. Remember, the elastic stains darker purple, okay. So function maintains the shape of structure while allowing great flexibility. All right, location, the external ear and epiglottis. All right, so again, you want to remember these locations. and then you have the chondrocyte and the lacunae, okay, in those cavities, the chondrocyte, and you see the matrix. All right, fibrocartilage. All right, so the matrix is similar to, but less firm than that in hyaline cartilage. You have thick collagen fibers predominate, okay? So function and tensile strength allows it to absorb compressive shock. So since it's a good shock absorber, you're gonna find it in places that need that, like the intervertebral disc, right, the pubic symphysis, and the disc of knee joints, okay? And you see the collagen fibers, and you see the chondrocytes and the lacunae. All right, so again, the matrix is similar to, but less firm than that in hyaline cartilage. All right, and you thick collagen fibers predominate. All right, so some clinical notes. So a vascular means no blood supply. Cartilage loses ability to divide as we age. So injuries heal slowly. All right, so common in people with sports injuries. Later in life, cartilage can also calcify, become bony, causes the chondrocytes to die. All right, so bone. I believe this is the last. Actually, I haven't talked about blood yet. So bone, all right, also called osseous tissue. All right, supports and protects body structures, stores fat, and synthesizes blood cells in cavities. So again, you may not realize it, but your majority of your blood cells get synthesized in your bone. Okay. And we'll talk about that more in detail. But majority of your blood cells get synthesized in your bone. All right. Stores fat and synthesizes blood cells in cavities. Has more collagen compared to cartilage. Has inorganic calcium salts. Osteoblasts produce the matrix, and then osteocytes maintain the matrix. So osteoblasts produce the matrix. Osteocytes maintain the matrix. Okay, and they reside in cavities in the matrix called lacunae. You've been hearing that word lacunae a lot. All right, lacunae are the cavities. Okay, so osteomes are individual structural units. All right, the individual structural units of bone, and they are highly vascularized. Okay, have a good blood supply. Osteome, all these circular structures, okay, these circular structures, all right, are osteomes, okay, and essentially osteomes are the circular structures that contain a mineral matrix and living osteocytes connected by canaliculi, all right, which transport blood. Canaliculi transport blood. All right, they are aligned parallel to the long axis of the bone. All right, in each osteome, all right, it's going to consist of these lamella, all right, which essentially layers. Okay, these are the layers of compact bone matrix surrounding that central canal. Okay, a lamella is the layers surrounding compact bone matrix that surrounds the central canal, okay, which is also called the Haversian canal, okay, the central canal. And the central canal is going to have the blood vessels, containing blood vessels and the nerve fibers, okay, blood vessels and nerve fibers is in the central canal. All right, so this is the osteome. All right, you see the lamella, which surrounds the central canal, okay, and the central canal contains the blood vessels and nerves, okay, and then you see the lacunae, okay, and the lacunae are the cavities, see the canaliculi, they're microscopic, okay? But the lacunae are connected to each other through the canaliculi, all right? And the canaliculi are going to supply the nutrients to the osteocytes, all right? And then remove waste, okay? And it's going to allow communication between the cells, okay? Those microscopic canals, okay, that you can't see, all right, are going to be the canaliculi. Canaliculi, which again, microscopic canals, you can't see it, but the canaliculi are microscopic canals that connect the lacunae to each other, and they're going to provide the nutrients, okay, to the osteocytes in the lacunae. All right, very well vascularized. So again, this central canal has blood vessels and nerves in the central canal, okay, very well vascularized. Functions to support and protects, provides levers for the muscles to act on, stores calcium and other minerals and fat. Marrow inside bone is the site for blood cell formation. All right, very important job. All right, blood. So this is the last connective tissue that we have to talk about. All right, most atypical connective tissue because it's just a fluid. All right, so it consists of cells surrounded by the matrix, which is in this case is the plasma, okay? So red blood cells are the most common cell type. Also contains white blood cells and platelets. All right, the fibers are going to be soluble proteins that precipitate during blood clotting and functions in transporting and carrying nutrients, waste, gases, and other substances, okay? So bloods, a picture of a blood is usually an easy slide also to identify. All right, so you see the erythrocytes, what you call the red blood cells. You see the white blood cells look a lot different than the red blood cells. And then you see the plasma, just the fluid. And normally there's some platelets, which are just little fragments of cells essentially scattered throughout, okay? This white blood cell is a lymphocyte, and this one is a neutrophil, okay? All right, so description, red and white blood cells in a fluid matrix. Function, transport respiratory gases, nutrients, waste, and other substances, all right, contained within blood vessels. Just a side note, when you're doing your DNA test, right, when you want to extract DNA from cells, do you get the DNA from the white or the red blood cells? All right. So essentially, the red blood cells are mature red blood cells, are just stacked or just packed with hemoglobin. Okay. So a mature red blood cell functions just to transport oxygen, essentially. Okay. So they're so committed to their job that they're going to essentially spit out the nucleus. Okay, and then fill themselves up with even more hemoglobin. Okay, so mature red blood cells do not have a nucleus. If they do not have a nucleus, then they cannot contain any DNA. All right, so you get your DNA from the white blood cells. All right. Integumentary system. We're going to talk about muscle tissue. We'll talk about different types of muscle tissue. We'll talk about nervous tissue. We'll talk about different membranes, and then tissue repair, and then we'll talk about the skin, the integumentary system. Okay, on the last lecture for this section.